Welcome to the first. You have a story. If you look back on your life, you've done things for the first time that no one in your family, in your town, in the country has done. This is Dr. Sandi. You have unknowingly paved the way for others without knowing it or even acknowledging it. This is where you tell your story so that those who come after you can walk in your footsteps to build their own firsts. Hey everybody, today I'm welcoming CEO Shannon Wilkinson. Shannon Wilkinson and I go way back because she was one of the first in the industry to establish an online reputation management firm. Also, her firm was one of the first to specialize in high-end clients like CEOs, celebrities, and VIPs. What that means is really if a CEO has something detrimental to him online, him or her online, Shannon is the one who goes in to clean this up. You see it with celebrities all the time. But she's also responsible for maintaining their profile so that their online reputation is totally managed. Now, after about 20 years in business, Shannon is a nationally recognized expert in digital reputation management. She's a frequent contributor to the Wall Street Journal's Crisis of the Week column, and she is the author of Reputation Reboot: What Every Business Leader, Rising Star, and VIP Needs to Know. Today, you can find Shannon sharing her knowledge by publishing extensive thought leadership documents to educate the greater public and new prospects about how Google and online reputation management work. Welcome, Shannon Wilkinson. Hey, everybody. Welcome to The First with Dr. Sandi. Today, I have a great guest, Shannon Wilkinson, and Shannon is the CEO of Reputation Communications. Shannon, tell us what that does. What does Reputation Communications do, and a little bit about yourself.
Reputation Communications is an online reputation management agency. Online reputation is a new practice. It started about maybe 12 or 13 years ago, and it manages and improves and shapes how people and organizations look on Google and other search engines. Today, if anyone is looking you up, whether it's an investor, a romantic or a business partner, an employer, a neighbor, they're going to Google you, and they might check you out on Yahoo, Bing, AOL, who knows. Google is the most predominantly used search engine in the US. It's got about 87% usership. And so online reputation management firms like mine create content strategies to publish all types of content online about individuals or organizations, everything from websites and Wikipedia entries to expanding LinkedIn entries, writing articles, blogs, managing their social media. And the end result is that when those people are Googled, there's a curated view of, hopefully the information that they want people to find. And having said that, it's kind of impossible to wipe away or to erase a lot of things on Google, especially things like fake news or harassment, unfortunately. It is possible, but it's not easy. So my firm does everything from reputation repair to reputation curation and reputation expansion. We specialize in...
Explain the difference for me between repair, curation, and what was the last one, management?
Yes, unfortunately, reputation repair is probably 50 to 75% of my business. And among our clientele, which generally are leaders in their fields, we specialize in high-end clients. So they might be high net worth, or they founded a company, or they run a company, or they're a published author, something like that. Unfortunately, often through no fault of their own, they have been maligned or harmed reputation-wise by third parties. Sometimes this is intentional abuse and harassment from anonymous posters. Very commonly, an instance like that might happen when someone lets an employee go. And the employee goes online and creates fake news. We've seen it happen in all sorts of instances. Today, increasingly, people are becoming canceled for sometimes their comments or behavior being misinterpreted, or perhaps they did something that offended someone, and they can be canceled, meaning they lose their jobs and they're written about, in the media or maybe, on television. We've worked with clients like that, and we've also worked with, in reputation repair, with people in the political world. Often, whatever side you're on, the more influential you are in politics, as in many other areas, the more detractors you may have. And they will actually organize Twitter campaigns that might tweet 30 times a day negative and false information about you, in the hopes that people will believe it and they won't support you, they won't vote for you, or they won't hire you. So that is one part of my business. And
So
I'm
can I
happy to
ask a
say that a
question on
growing,
that? Can I ask you a question on
yes.
that? So
Mhm.
when you repair when you do repair, do you
Mhm.
wipe out all of the stuff that's there, or you just block them from not being seen?
Well, in many cases, you can't really block it. But what you do is you strategically place new content online that is higher ranking and that is going to move that material down and off of Twitter. I'm sorry, off of Google. So right now, for example, a client might have 5 articles on the front page of their Google results from, let's just say, a claim that from someone that claims they were, falsely accused of, some anything from she said to, um, to a former romantic partner whose engagement was broken, and somehow goes and speaks to the media and says terrible things about the person, like, for whatever reasons. And we sit down and we look at the existing material available online about that individual. And often, despite our wired social world, there are many people who deliberately don't have a lot of information about themselves on Google. They might want privacy. They might work in a very security conscious field where they just don't want a lot of information out there, such as a CEO of a public company, or maybe a high net worth person, or just someone who's very private. And we look at what they have available and we say, do you have a website in your name, a yourname.com? Do you have, a Twitter account? Are you on Instagram or Facebook? Um, you know, are you an expert in anything that you could write articles about or have a blog about? And almost invariably, people either have that kind of expertise, or they have a personal passion, like, improving the environment, or, fighting against climate change. All of those topics and more can be used to create websites, social media posts, blogs, even a foundation. So one way or another, we try and gather and create credible, authentic information related to the person or an organization and publish it on the internet. And the challenge is that you can publish a lot of material on the internet, but it doesn't necessarily rise to the first page of Google.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
and so this process can take anywhere from 3 to 12 months. And it's not easy, but unfortunately, in today's world, it's to everyone's advantage to have a lot of information like that about themselves or their organization on the internet, because first of all, it helps you manage what the world sees about you. You can't control what other people say about you online. I think a perfect example right now is Will Smith, the actor.
Very good word.
Um, I just I just Googled him today to see, what are people saying about Will Smith? So there's a lot of conversation about Will Smith. Right now, he doesn't really have a lot of control over that. He did extend an apology, to Chris Rock for
Right.
hitting him on national television. So that was a very positive thing. That enabled him to have some control over the direction of that conversation. Next, he'll probably have interviews. All that will create a good body of information. It's not going to cover up or block negative views and negative opinions about his behavior, but it will provide a counterbalance for it. And
Yes.
that's one thing that reputation management does as well.
So can I ask the opposite point of view? If
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to suppress this negative information about the person, what if I'm on the other side and I need to know the full person, right? Because if I'm hiring someone, let's say, and I look at their Google profile and it's squeaky clean, how will I know if someone is giving me information that they don't want me to get? Like they're
Well,
giving me stuff so that I don't see, the rest of the other things.
if you go down deep Google, you're going to see those other things. Because first of all, if there's legitimate, let's just say, negative information it can be legitimate or not. It can be credible or not. So if that person, for example, if there are legal notices about that individual, you're going to see them. The important key is to read past the first 2 pages of Google, because as I said before, most material in the US cannot be removed from the internet unless it is harassment or defamation, which actually is easier to stay online. So fortunately, many forms of harassment are now being addressed by platforms like Google and Twitter. So discarding that, if there's genuine, real negative information about an individual, just keep looking as far as you can on Google, because you will find it. And I will also say that the advantage of my firm, this is something I like. My firm is something called a boutique firm. We have 10 workers, 10 people who help us in this process. We're not an enterprise level firm that takes thousands of customers and will take any customers. We are pretty, I would say we're very careful about the kind of clients we work with. We don't want to represent criminals or people with any sort of background like that, just because I always say, well, first of all, we can't really help them because the truth is on the internet, number one, and it's very hard to get rid of. But we are working for clients, and we have worked for clients who, just in one instance, was the subject of a false lawsuit. They call it like a vanity lawsuit. Someone lost their temper and decided, oh, I'm just going to sue the person, and there's nothing to sue, so the lawsuit got thrown out.
Right.
However, you'll find that online. But a person in that position who's been falsely sued for something to do definitely wants that not to appear on the first page of their Google results. And I would also say that these days there are wonderful platforms out there for, if you're an employer or anyone who really wants to vet someone before you associate with them professionally or even personally. There are some terrific tools out there and platforms. And one of the most important, I think many people don't realize this is being done today, is people's social media channels are being vetted before they're admitted to colleges and before they're hired. And I've also heard in the last year or two that TV shows, before they invite a guest, and it might be a guest that they know pretty well, they're going to go back years and look at their social media posts, because none of these entities want to associate with someone who has raised red flags like discrimination, sexism, harassment, violence, profanity. So So they're actually, we publish a digital magazine on my company website, which is reputation-communications.com. And our digital magazine is called UYOU Online. And we
Mm,
publish tons of free information. It's not clickbait. It's really helpful information about how to manage your online profile. And we've actually interviewed a woman who started a social media vetting agency, like, within the last several years. It's
really?
called Social Intelligence.
Wow.
Sandy, it's amazing. Everyone should know about this, because seriously, if you are applying for a job, or you're launching a startup, especially if you're someone, I mean, this might sound prejudiced, but if you're someone like 35 and under, meaning your social media, you've been doing it since you were 10 years old,
Yes.
um, there might be a lot of posts out there that you just forgot about, and they're 10 years old. Well, someone's going to find that. And if you become known, if you win awards, if you're
Yes.
interviewed on TV, or a journalist is going to find something that you retweeted, 12 years ago, and it could really just ruin your reputation. So
Yes.
firms
I've
like
seen
social,
some athletes.
yeah,
Athletes and celebrities come up with
mhm,
that. I mean, they get that a lot. Oh, I think the most recent one was Kevin Hart, who
uh,
maybe more than 10, 15 years ago said
mhm,
something negative in one of his in-person performances, and he's a
uh-huh,
comedian, and he said something
yeah,
about gay
uh-huh,
people.
yeah,
And the culture at that time, people used to talk about gay people, right? And
mhm,
it came up very recently where I think a gay or LGBTQ organization brought it up,
yeah,
found this clip and brought it up. And you can change as a person, because what was in fashion then to laugh at is certainly not today. And people don't always
no,
take it in context, right?
absolutely. And Kim Kardashian was just in the news within the last 2 days.
Yes.
And I thought she did a very good job. She was explaining the context of a comment that had been taken out of context. And she was explaining the importance of context. So back to online reputation management, when you are trying to shape the perception that the web has of you, or to curate it, which is maybe a better word, that also includes just, reviewing all your social media channels, reviewing all your last posts, and just seeing, does this reflect who I am today? Is this
Right.
how I want people to become associated, get to know me? And if
Yes.
not, so reputation communications, or reputation management, is not really so much trying to whitewash or hide, but it's just trying to curate so that you have a unified, authentic, um, presentation of yourself
Yeah.
online. You can't control anything else, and people will find, something else that happens quite a bit today is on, especially on the higher levels of management, as people are getting promoted, particularly in the financial field, other industries. Um, Companies are doing due diligence, and I mean deep dive due diligence. These documents can be 25 pages long. Now, fortunately for us, I don't think people are doing these about us. Um, and most people are informed when a company is preparing to undertake due diligence. But
Mhm.
you don't have to inform people to check out what they've said on social media. So if you're out
It's
there and you
true.
want to, yeah, and you people can use social media very strategically. If someone wants to
We
change
did.
fields, or how
We
did you
did in
do
our
it?
company, because when we hire people, they're usually senior level executives.
Mhm,
And we look at their social media, because if we're in a company that, on social media, they said something unfavorable about, we
uh-huh,
wouldn't place them at that company. because clearly you already publicized an opinion that you didn't
Mhm.
like company X. Why would
Mhm.
we present you as one of our employees to that company?
Exactly.
So
Yes.
we did
Um,
we did utilize social media for young people coming out of college.
mhm.
You're absolutely right. We looked at what they were doing. Were they party kids? Like every social media picture has got a bottle of liquor in their hand. You know,
Yeah.
we looked at things like that because that's not the presentation we want to give. If we look at it, when we send you an interview, someone else is going to look at it too.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So, reputation management in general has become a thing. It's written about all the
Yes,
time.
yes.
I, I, I just read something like in a veterinarian magazine online. I noticed, they had an article for, you know, reputation management for veterinarians. So,
Oh my
it, it,
goodness.
it,
You didn't kill my dog, is that the?
but the good news is in today's world, individuals have so much opportunity to present themselves, and this is why we're seeing so many successful entrepreneurs
Yes,
on TikTok.
yes,
They're 18 and they make
yes.
six figures because
Figures.
you know
Oh my
they've
God.
they've shaped
Influencers.
they've created.
Yes,
So it's fascinating to see, and I think it's wonderful that so many people have the ability now to create an income stream independently. That they could, whether they're 16 or 18 or 40. Maybe
yes,
they're blogging about wine. It's really broadened everyone's opportunities to be more independent, to be a sole proprietor if they want to do that, and build an income stream for themselves. And the internet has made that possible, and being able to shape your reputation or your persona is just another part of that.
yes. I love the internet. I think it's probably one of the greatest inventions ever. It has its great side and it also has its bad side, right? Because we can sit here, I sit here all day in front of this little screen because of technology. I couldn't have been
Yeah.
speaking to you because, it's all technology based. And it allowed me to form a company because I
Mhm.
hired mostly women who wanted flexible work arrangements. That's what my company was built on. So definitely without the internet, they couldn't work from home, still make the same salary that they used to make, or sometimes better when they were going
Mhm.
into the corporation. But then there's just that other side of the internet, right? That's very seedy where people can say things that are
Yeah.
not true and it's not vetted.
Mhm.
As soon, if it's on Twitter, it must be true.
No, it's very harmful, and the ability to be anonymous has made people, you know, um, unfortunately, be attracted to that. But hopefully, one day there will be more filtering among social media giants, because in Europe, it's very different. In Europe, um, online abuse or online harassment is considered a human rights abuse,
Yes.
and they have very strict laws against it, and they have very strict privacy laws, and their laws, they just passed another one, um, which big tech doesn't like. So in America right now, all the tech companies are protected by a very outdated law from 1996, which frees them of responsibility for what anyone posts on their platform, whether it's Facebook or Twitter. So the Senate and there are a lot of people in this country who are trying to change that law, and to refocus it and to adapt it,
Yes.
and also increasing numbers of attorneys who specialize in that kind of work. So in really helping people who are victims of savory speech. So hopefully we'll see an improvement in that area.
Hopefully. How did you get into this business, Shannon? Are you one of the first that were in this business? How did you
Um,
wind up getting in there?
so, so my background is in public relations, and I went the cultural field. One of my first jobs in New York City was at the Guggenheim Museum, and is the lowest on the totem pole in the public affairs office. And before that, I had a writing background. So I was very involved in publicity, and started getting freelance jobs, worked for a big agency, and after 5 years or so, started my own agency, and I did cultural PR for many years, mainly art. We promoted David Hockney, people like Picasso, and eventually, after the internet really started being used, we started doing all of our PR on the internet. Press releases, promotion, websites, Wikipedia. And we had a client who was an author, and we created about 3 or 4 pages of Google information about him. And he had a client on Wall Street who ran an investment firm. And right around the last major recession, when was it, like 2007, I think,
Eight,
Wall Street crashed.
2008
Okay, 2008.
and to nine, yes.
So the year before, a lot of investors started losing money. No matter, it doesn't matter where their money was. It could be any big firm. They were all losing money because the crash was about to happen. And so at that time, companies really didn't have any more online than maybe a company website. So they had no protection against anything a third party would say. And people started venting on online financial forums about how awful their investment firms were. Don't put your money here. They're awful. I just lost 30%. And so this company was facing that, and they hired private detectives to find out who's saying these awful things about us. How can we make them stop? So they tried all these things, and finally my client said, I think that she can help you. So he put us together, and it was really, to me, it was very interesting. It was a challenge. So we improved the situation within about 3 months. And by the way, I personally find this very interesting. This is also something that many people don't know. The private detectives actually tracked down the person who was writing most of the hateful posts. He never knew that he was a retired postal worker in Ohio. So this is something that companies do. Companies will track down a person like that because they want to see if they're potentially dangerous. But that aside, I created a campaign, published more information about the company. And once again, this wasn't fake information. It was just legitimate information about the company that took up more space on Google. And as a result of that, all the private detectives started referring us to companies in finance. So
Yes.
within a year of doing several projects like that, I would say a company like Bank of America called, and I went in and I used to create charts to educate clients like that about. I just explained to them, okay, this is how it looks on Google now, but if we do A through Z, this is how it will look on Google probably, and these are the reasons why. So
Right.
people would look at the charts, and every week they'd get a better chart. So I would say that that was a small engagement to start, but within probably 6 weeks, they gave us 10 more engagements. So
Wow.
I went from instantly being a person who didn't have a business card for this to just instantly having everything a startup could possibly want. So I exited from PR, got in this field. And the other thing, I think this could be helpful for anyone listening who is a budding entrepreneur or is planning a startup. At this time, which was over 10 years ago, by now it was 2009, so that's over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
People still really didn't understand how Google would work. It was still kind of new that people would Google a company and all this random information would come up, and a company A lot of people didn't understand this. It was all new. All these new industries were starting as a result, including my industry. So I started a very small blog on a website, a little website, I cranked up at the time. And I would say within 6 months, I received interview requests from Consumer Reports and Banking New York and I think the NBC Today show. They all had questions. So that blog morphed into our, digital magazine that I mentioned earlier. And
Right.
I then became a commentator for the Wall Street Journal about crisis management. For about 4 years, the Wall Street Journal had a great column called Crisis of the Week. And they'd take some huge crisis, when Uber, when Uber had its original CEO and, he
Yes.
was drinking beer and then giving talks on TV, things like that.
Yes.
And they would say how can Uber,
How could they
how can
hire
Uber,
someone like that in the beginning? Did they not vet them?
well, he started the company, so he was unvettable,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
but, but the Wall Street Journal would pose a question, how can this firm, what could this firm
Do better.
could have done differently to manage
Yeah.
it, and they'd invite 3 PR reputation experts to weigh in. So, all of this just unfolded organically at first. And then, of course, I started marketing and very fortunate to have you as a mentor through the national organization of NABO, the National Association of Women Business Owners. And I feel like your mentorship was a real turning point for me. So I just want
Thank
to say
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Um,
I really enjoyed my time as a mentor in that program. It was a brand new program that we started, and you were one of the first mentees. And I have to say, I learned as much. I learned as much from
you know,
you as you did from me.
well, I don't know if you remember this, and I don't want to get on off topic, but this could be important. It was certainly a first for me. Um, the first assignment you gave me, and I just want to call out the fact that we would meet at Balthazar, which was this super cool place where all the models went, and we would meet on Friday mornings, I think, which was
Yes.
awesome. Like, why go back to work unless you have? Um, and one of your first assignments was, um, I forget what you called it, but you said, do you have an operations manual, for your company with everything?
Ah,
That was like the first assignment, and you explained an operations
wow.
manual is it's a list of virtually all your resources, all the platforms you subscribe, all your keep, your accountant, your bookkeeper, your that. Do you have a one document with all of that? And of course, as you said, don't put your bank account, information on it, but everything else. And I created this document, and it has everything, it's like 20 pages long now. I updated, I just changed accountants. So I just added the new accounting firm, and it's really been no, I mean, this is over like a 10-year period, but I have copies. I'm actually going to put one in a safe deposit box.
Yes.
Um, but you gave me, yeah, and there's something else that you did. This is another piece of advice that was a first for me, so I want to share it. Um, I had a super big corporate client, and that was fine. And I developed a new product, and I wanted to sell it to them, and they were too busy. They didn't understand it, and I showed it to you, and you said, just do, create a sample. These things were reports. They were reputation reports, and you
Yes.
said, just do a free sample, like give them a free sample. And okay, went back to the drawing board. Spent a few weeks creating this very, very long document, and we got 10 assignment. They bought 10 of those for 10 individuals after. So that was I would never have done that. I wouldn't have thought of it.
Well,
But as soon as
it's
they
similar
saw it,
to
they got it.
some people are visual, right? And it's
Mhm.
the same thing as if you were baking cookies and someone says, I don't eat, chocolate cheesecake cookies.
Yeah.
You want them to taste it. because there's something different about your cookie that they probably will like. Or you
Yes.
start selling them on the features, right? And the benefits of, okay, my cookie is white chocolate. I don't know if that's better or not, but you start breaking it down. But once they taste it, it's
Mhm.
like, I've got to have 10 more of these cookies. So that was the only thing from a marketing perspective I wanted you to do was give them a sample, because once they see it and see how relevant it is, then they'll bite. They'll literally bite that cookie.
You know, I've always thought that's a great piece of advice, and I spoke with a very seasoned PR person once who is very respected, and um, someone had called her for like to ask her a question who might be a prospect, might not, and she said, I only speak to people who pay me. So, like, yes, I'll speak to you, but it will cost you XYZ. And I remember thinking, wow, I wonder how that works. If because if you do that 5 times, it might be that 4 of those conversations don't go anywhere, but those conversations are like seeds.
Yes.
You know, some can turn into like your advice of the free report was very valuable, and I've done I've done more in recent years, not something as extensive, but I have done things like that, and sometimes if I really want to close an engagement and it's just not coming in, I'll just create like maybe a 1-page
Yes.
diagram or chart that is helpful to the person, but doesn't tell the whole story, and it has helped close a sale. So thank you, Sandi.
You know what you should do even better is give them their real profile and says, this is what you look like now. And,
Yeah.
with all the bad stuff. And then this is what we can make you look like in, 5, 6 months or whatever. But
You know, yeah, no, it's a very good idea, because I think also today in many fields, often what prospects seek is something that's not like, you don't get the tangible results immediately. It's not like
yes,
going out and deciding on a perfume, or Oracle doctor. It's
yes.
something service related, takes time. So I just think you're brilliant, and I think this
Oh,
program
say
is
that again.
wonderful.
I'm just sharing what I have. That's all
Yeah.
I'm doing. And I'm trying to get people to share what they have. So, what are some of the things that you're very joyful about, having been the first in this area and leading the way in reputation management? What are some things you're glad about that?
Um, the first thing is, I'm glad that by default, I was one of the first leaders in this field to specialize in um, the CEO, C-suite, VIP level client. It, as you could see from what I said earlier, it's happened. It happened that the first people who we were referred to were financial sector clients. Everyone from private investment firms to public financial companies. And from then, I really only wanted to specialize in that field, although maybe 20% of our clients are just, they're regular executives or they're recent college graduates. But the reason I'm excited about that is it's given us a lot of history with the challenges that kind of client faces. And it also has enabled us to stay out of what I call the dark side internet.
Yeah.
We receive inquiries about dark um, things on the internet, and we refer them to other firms or attorneys when we can. Um, and I also have found um, it's been a great advantage to be a female in this business.
How
I think.
so?
Um, well, have you ever heard the statistic that people trust women auto people over men?
Yes,
There's some
yes.
statistics out there. Um,
Yes.
and I will say, I have male colleagues I respect on this, so I'm not criticizing them, but um, this industry was kind of like the Wild West when it started. It was actually called the Wild West because um, a lot of firms sprang up, and there's a sector of online reputation management called SEO, search engine optimization. So, there are all these people out there who, they're really great at SEO, these things that are too hard to explain how they work, internet
Right.
related things. So all these people spring up, a lot of good businesses, some dubious businesses, but there are bad actors out there who claim, unfortunately, that they can, hire us and we'll wipe it away. We will wipe away
Yes.
the search results, and we'll wipe away the bad reviews. Well, most of it can't be wiped away.
But
But
Shannon,
I've spoken with too many people.
there are going to be these people in every profession, right?
You know, I think right. Unfortunately, so many people, we're all confused about how the internet and Google works. Everyone is. And there are many people who don't understand. So they believe that. And I feel like as a female, um, I have been able to build trust and credibility among many clients who have engaged us. And I can't say it's just because I'm a female, but I like the fact that um, they trust me. And fortunately, a lot of we've built a very large referral, just organic referral base, and it comes from the results that we've delivered. And I have to say, we've also spoken to people like one man said, talking to you is like having had like a really bad first date, but you're such a really good second date. you know, because he'd hired like the wrong kind of firm before. Who knows? Maybe it was a female-led firm, but that makes me feel really happy. And
Yes.
something else that I think is just joyful is this is a great time to be a female entrepreneur.
Yes.
In fact, I think
Yes.
yes, the world is our oyster. We have so many opportunities, and there's so many resources available to really to all entrepreneurs, but especially for females. There are powerful organizations. There are networking organizations. There are people like you who will train you on everything from closing deals to how to dress, how to present yourself, how to raise VC money. So I think it's a wonderful time to be a woman in today's world, certainly in the United States. It's not perfect, but
We're
we're
getting
making
there.
a lot of headway. Yeah, and there's so many people who are, I mean, I haven't pursued, investments because um, I was my investor from day one, and that it's I don't want an enterprise company, but there are a lot of people out there who are they're looking at female-led companies.
Yeah.
I've certainly been approached uh, as by a company who expressed interest in acquiring my company. We've had conversations, so it's a wonderful time to be a woman because being an entrepreneur, um, it enables you to create the life that you want. And that might be having the flexibility to raise a family on your timetable and your terms. It might be, going the venture capital route and, doing that thing. But we have much more freedom and we have much more financial autonomy today. And that helps everybody. It helps our families. It helps
Yes.
our communities. And I think it helps men, as well. I've found men to be so helpful, and I mean my some of my best mentors, and certainly my biggest supporters in terms of introducing me to their golden Rolodexes. They've been men, so that's something that makes me feel very satisfied. And I've been doing this. I can't say for 20 years, but I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, and I feel like I'm just looking forward to continuing to build over the next decade because it gets to be so much fun when you become a mature company, you've got all these systems that really work well,
That is
and
correct.
it just goes, yeah, it just goes really, really smoothly.
And that is what companies who are looking to buy you, that is what they're looking for. The number one thing I
Mhm.
think is that your company can run without you. And that's what that operations manual was for. It was, Peggy and I called it, or if we get hit by a bus book, because what happens if you get sick or if you have an accident and you're the only person with all this information, you need
Yeah.
to have this written down somewhere so that in your absence, someone can pick it up, and they might not do as great a job as you, but they can still
Uh,
just keep your operations going until you're ready to do that. I've seen that happen where, especially for solopreneurs and females, they get sick,
uh,
have surgery. I've seen women with breast cancer or other kinds of cancer where they're the only one or the key one. And
yeah.
those are immediate things that happen to you that you don't have time to start writing down at that point, right? And some of them have
Yeah.
gone out of business while the ones who had people to pick it up survived.
I think you made a really important point because uh, I don't know if this is a proven fact, but I know that Julia Pimsleur, who has the organization Million Dollar Women, she trained women to be $1 million entrepreneurs. And um, she's made the point, she actually wrote a book about this, about like probably, I don't know, 8% of women entrepreneurs are solopreneurs. Like
Yes,
they try and do everything themselves. And
yes.
the first thing that she teaches is how to get off the hamster wheel. But it does get to, I think it's normal, and people who want to get past that. Um, but I want to give a shout out to this. I've been using a company called Chatterboss, to use virtual assistants. Um,
Ah,
I've had virtual assistants. Yeah, I've had virtual assistants in the past who are like employees, but when they decided to go to grad school or took another job, they would
they
not
go.
be available, so the knowledge was lost. Chatterboss was actually founded by a woman who was a first former personal assistant to
Oh,
celebrities.
wow.
So yeah, and I'm giving a shout out, just an example to build on what you just said. Uh, the advantage of using that I found in using them, and I have one designated virtual assistant, just as my assistant. I have 10 other, contractors,
Right.
but um, you train them in, you create a process sheet for everything that you want them to do, or they will create it for you. And then you can delegate everything, and as you said, when you were mentoring me, delegate your social media management. You
Right.
said you shouldn't be doing that. You need an intern or someone. So the advantage of using this agency is that all of that thought, that valuable, process information and know-how is not lost. If the person who is my virtual assistant right now, who's fantastic, if she leaves the company or moves to another assignment, they have all the training manuals, everything on hand for the next
Nice.
person to step in.
Very
And
nice.
and well, it makes your investment, if you're paying for an assistant, um, to me, it makes my investment much more valuable because I will not have to retrain anyone in the future. And that's been, that's been a godsend. Now, I have a new accountant who works for H&R Block, and I'm moving my whole system over to my whole payroll system over to ADP. That going for the contractors who work for my company will, they'll email their invoices to that platform, which is AI, it's artificial intelligence, and they'll identify the invoices, and they'll be automatically paid by direct deposit on the 5th of every month. But I'm so happy about this because it's
Yes.
taken, like, I don't have to, I used to look at my, of course, I've got all my business financials on my app every morning. I like to check the bank balance. Who doesn't? Um,
You
so
should.
I've been checking it. And I thought, what? There's a lot to be said. Like, I don't have to do this. Like, it's fun to do it. I like to see what came in, maybe what went out. But I realized the system has been created so that I can do this twice a month. Like, I can
Exactly.
spend my time doing other things. So very happy about that. And, um, and what you don't realize when you're an emerging entrepreneur, when you start your company with $500 savings, is that
Yes.
all the experiences, all your experiences over your first 5 years or 10 years, they keep accruing and refining and all these things, and then you reach a point where you've built something that really works, and it works well for your customers as well. So it's really been worth the sweat equity at time, in the earlier days.
Yes.
It's been a wonderful adventure.
What are some of the
Um,
things you don't like about this adventure, though?
let's see. I would The things I don't like are my own mindset and habits. In other words, um, when had been transitioning to this new accounting system, what it's done is I've taken my hands off all the controls. Now I'm the only signer on my financials, but
Correct.
somebody else is handling all that now. So at first, when I had this opportunity and it was recommended, I thought, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I like looking at this stuff every morning. So it was a transition, and I realized that for it to work really well, I have to change my mindset. I've got to let that go. Let
Yes.
this system handle it. Um,
Yes.
so so for me, what I don't like about my business usually derives not from an exterior challenge. It's not a client that might be
Mm.
difficult or challenging or anything like that. It's how can I change? How can I improve my own mindset? And how can I change habits to make everything more automated? Like, for example, I have not uploaded the company operations manual to the virtual assistant's docket. Why not? Why not? So 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 the great thing about being an entrepreneur is that you always have to, if you want to succeed or become more successful, it has to be an inside job, because
It
it's usually not something on the
does.
outside.
It does. It's so much an inside job. And just like you develop
Uh-huh.
systems for the bigger company, you have to develop systems for yourself, right? And it doesn't have to match like the bigger company thing. It's something you understand and that you will use. So for example, I live by my calendar.
Yep.
I live by my calendar. Everything I do goes on my calendar. And it started out because I used to double and triple book people, right? I wouldn't put it, someone would say, I'm coming at 10 o'clock. And I'm like, okay, great, I'll see you at 10. And then that might have been 2 weeks ago. And then I run into someone else and I'll look at my calendar. I'm like, I have 10 o'clock free because I didn't write it down. And so
Mhm.
I started figuring out if I just write these things down when it happens or what I need to be doing each time, it'll make my life a little bit better. And that
Mhm.
progressed to sometimes I color code. Like if you see my calendar right now,
Boy, that's
I'll,
pretty hardcore.
well, it's a visual. So the things that I'm done with are in green. It's like I have the green light, they're done. The stuff that I need to do and I'm putting off, it's in red. And if I keep carrying it over like day to day,
Yeah.
at some point I need to stop. And for me, it's Friday. If I don't get it done Monday, Tuesday, Friday is my get shit done day. It's, it's going to be touched. I don't want it to be red going over into another week.
Yeah.
So that's my system. And so I hook up my appointments. I have my Calendly that goes straight onto my calendar because when I was doing it double work, I'd have to call you 3 times to see when you're available. And so this is what technology is now. It's really helping you to do your CEO job better, right? So I don't have to do that. I send you my calendar. You find the time that fits me on the calendar. But
It's interesting. So that's something that you have changed internally in your own operation, and you
yes,
find it frees you. Yeah.
yes. And
Um,
I try to, there are times when I might block out an hour for something.
mhm,
If it's going well and I'm in a groove, it'll come 5 o'clock and it's time for me to stop to go on to the other activity. But I can take a look at it and say, I will get more value out of moving that other thing on my calendar and keep working at this while I'm in the mindset and in
yeah,
the groove. And
yeah,
that will bring me more value than leaving or jumping off and going to a meeting. So it's not that it doesn't change. It's just you have to
mhm,
manage it and manage the scheduling of that.
mhm.
And yeah, you should leave time for fun. Leave some blank spaces on your calendar and just for random conversations or to do things.
It's funny you say Friday, your day for getting things done, because Friday, for me, I mean, for my entire, for the last 20 years, Friday has always been my day to like go out to lunch, hopefully. Um, and then because living in New York, who wants to go back to work on a Friday unless you have to,
Yes,
because I mean, Fridays in New York City are half of the
fun
world
day,
is not at
fun
work,
day,
or
work
they've
from home
they've
day.
left. Yeah, because you can meet someone for lunch, and then you can go look at galleries. You can walk through Central Park. You can meet someone at the Metropolitan. And I've always found that if it didn't hurt my business not to be there on a Friday afternoon, then if there's something I wanted to do, like I do a lot of thought leadership writing in my job. I write articles and so forth, and I enjoy that. But I'd much rather spend like a rainy Saturday afternoon doing that after having taken off Friday. So I think for many people, Friday is symbolic of, in yours, what you want to cross off your list.
Well, let me
And
tell you why it became Friday. Because when you're running a company, you belong to other people Monday through Thursday. Your time is not your own. Your calendar is booked with appointments, client appointments, training other people, reviewing. You have to sit with your accountant. That's the company's time. So I find people are not bothering me on Friday because they're busy getting their own stuff done to finish out the
yeah,
week. And I
uh-huh,
usually have a good amount of time to create presentations because maybe I have a new sales thing. That's the time I can get to do it. If I need to make phone calls, that's the time I can sit and carve out the time to make a phone call. So Fridays evolved into being my day,
mhm.
the Sandy day to catch up besides weekends. But yeah, pretty much I've always kept my Fridays loose. I'm going back to doing that again because I had filled up my Fridays and now I'm trying to take half a days on Friday to just do little things like go get a haircut or
Yep,
maybe
personal time. It's wonderful for personal time, and and people. I mean, ideally, there can be personal time, and then meeting someone for coffee at 4,
yes,
because I mean, yeah, it's the perfect day for that. And
especially
then
in the summertime
when,
here.
yeah, I mean, in the summertime, another reason why so many people in New York, leave on Fridays at lunch is because there's commuters and or people are going, out country. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you on Fridays. We'll have
So
to get
let me
together one
just
Friday.
definitely anytime you're here, let me know. Uh, How are you sharing this knowledge? This is my last question for you. How are you sharing your knowledge now and giving back to the next generation?
Well, I don't share knowledge about being an entrepreneur now. I have belonged to organizations in the past and have done that through networking. In my industry, I publish a lot of thought leadership and content about a lot of the reputation management things that we've spoken about here. And it's not clickbait. It's really like sometimes when people call me a prospective client, I just feel like, read you online, read our magazine, and you don't have to hire us. Like there's one long article, just like do everything on it and you'll be fine. You need it. So
Yeah.
I do a lot of that, and and we publish a monthly newsletter with mainly helpful information. Every newsletter will do a little self marketing, but I really try and educate people about how and why to be proactive on the internet as a positive step toward achieving what you want to. And it's not necessarily your career. It might be philanthropy or something that you care about. But when you get out all this information about yourself and your initiatives on the internet, a lot of magic can happen, a lot of opportunities. People can find you. Um, you become more valuable, as an employee or as a service provider. So I try and do my best in those areas.
I have a new service for you,
All right.
creating business. I think there needs to be a class that is approved by the public school system that
Uh,
starts to teach the very thing, your reputation management to children
mhm.
from the time they start using a computer. Because when they start out learning that information, they now know what to do throughout their lifetimes instead of getting to, it's kind of putting you out of business in a sense, but into a different business because they will know not to do those things or make those posts because
Uh-huh.
they'll understand how it impacts them and their future. By the time they're 20, getting out of college and they have, a trail of stuff to clean up, yes, good business for you, but I think it'll be a better business overall for the world if we start giving them that education earlier.
I
And you
think
could
that's a
teach it.
brilliant idea. No, it's an idea. An example is, well, first of all, um, most people in, say, high school, um, they're most interested in each other on social media. Their peers are their audience. But in cases where let's just say that someone loves animals and knows that they want to work with animals. Maybe they want to be a veterinarian one day, or maybe someone loves sports and he wants to be an agent one day, or he wants to work in football. If you're fortunate enough to know what your passions are at that age, imagine, when you're 15, starting a Twitter or an Instagram account or TikTok about, animal welfare or, the history of football stats and all that. Imagine if you start at 15 or 16, by the time you graduate from high school, you could have 1 million followers and you could be a gold mine of value for, a sports rep agency, for a
Absolutely.
veterinarian college. If you're applying for a scholarship, they might look at you twice because you have that body of knowledge and that amount of engagement. So that's just something that also what they call personal branding. Personal branding is a part of reputation management, but it's definitely valuable. I have heard a professor, a teacher in Florida who leads a personal branding course in high school. And something else I've heard is that's apparently increasingly popular in colleges is that a lot of colleges or professors are encouraging their students to create personal branding websites, which are usually a
Yeah.
one-page website. It's got their resume or their bio, so that when they're graduated and they're out job hunting and they're Googled, there's a professional of themselves. I mean, I heard this
I
like
think
a
it's
few
too
years ago, and
late.
I thought, wow, I'm so impressed. But you're
It is,
absolutely
but
right.
it's too late at that point because today the internet is a necessity. You know, this cell phone, a child, a 1 year old starts to
Yeah,
learn how to use it, right? They
yeah.
learn how to swipe just as soon as they start to, I don't know, just the same time they start to eat or being teased, they can take their mom's phone and do this. So if you're starting to expose people to the idea of reputation, you need to start at the very minute they start to go online.
No, Sandy, you're absolutely right, and it reminds me of something that a client in the financial services field has said. He believes that financial education should be in every public school, should start in the seventh grade, uh, as much as physical education or arithmetic, and because he believes that. So it reminds me of what a client in financial services has said once. It's his own personal passion. He believes that every public school should start financial education courses in the seventh grade, and that every public school student should have them throughout school. And he believes that if that happened, you would see much more economically empowered um, students
Yes,
graduating,
yes,
and they would there'd be a lower level of low income, you know, um,
true,
families in this
true.
country.
I
But
think
but I
it should be earlier. I think it should be earlier than seventh grade, and I'll tell you why. When I was in public school, it was mandatory. It was mandatory to have a bank account. Like every
huh,
child had to have a bank account, right? And the local bank, at the time it was the Dime Savings Bank or some kind of savings bank, would have an affiliation with that school. And they would give you, I'm dating myself again, a passbook. So this is a book that you stamp anytime if you deposit $5, you stamp $5 or you handwrite $5. And we had this organization, it was part of our GO or general organization, where the bank came in and they set up a mini bank in the school and it was run by the students.
huh,
Am I that old? Oh my God. And there would be a treasurer, there would be a president and a vice president. And there was someone, I forgot what they called them, but they had to sit with the treasurer to count the money. No one person could count the money. So
mhm,
that person was there to make sure if it says $5, they put $5 into the kitty. And
yeah,
what that taught us, sometimes they'd have a contest to see who would save the most. Other times they would just give you little like at the time a pen, a monogram pen was a big deal. So they'd give you a
mhm,
monogram, a pen with their name on it, and just little things like that. But it taught
mhm,
you to put a quarter. They would accept a quarter was the
huh,
minimum you could do. And so some kids, if
mhm,
that's what they had, they would save up, not buy candy, not buy, a record, they
huh,
would save that just so when they see that line of kids standing to go to the bank in school, they want to be on that line too. And so they would save their money to deposit. And that's how I learned that you have to save. And in
yeah,
no time at all, if you were a child and you had $20 back then, late 60s, early 70s, if you had $20, you had a lot of money.
yes, that's
You
a
could
great
buy
lesson.
Christmas presents. We had Christmas clubs, vacation clubs, all these different channels of financial resources that you
Mhm,
could use and learn how to use that you use in your life today. And those are
yep.
gone from the system. Yes, we did go off on a
That's a
tangent. You brought up the
no,
right
but
topic.
that's a one. No, that's a wonderful example, and I appreciate your idea. Something that I'm going to give thought to. It could also be interesting to do it on YouTube, or just to at least create. But no, I think it's a very good idea, and it's very timely. I mean, it's really just about how, like, using it intentionally, using the internet intentionally with your future in mind.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, Sandi, thank
go.
you so much.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. This is Dr. Sandi. Thank you so much for sharing your journey on the first, where no two stories are alike, even if the circumstances are similar. Let this discussion serve as inspiration for others to show what's possible, and more importantly, to produce seconds and thirds.